Well, good morning. This is Pastor Marvin Osborn of the First Baptist Church of Birmingham, Ohio. I hope you're well today. We're in Ephesians chapter 5. Yesterday we talked about that idea of forgiving as God has forgiven us. And then in verse 2, he says, and walk in love. We are to be imitators or followers of God. We are to do as He does. We are to forgive as He does. Verse 2, and we are to walk in love as Christ also loved us and hath given Himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. He says that you and I are to walk in love as Christ. Verse 1, we are to be followers or imitators of God, and you and I are to walk in love as Christ does. So the examples are both God the Father and God the Son. Yet you and I are to follow their leading. We are to forgive as God has forgiven us, and we are to love as Christ has loved us. Christ is the example by which you and I are to measure our love. He says, and walk in love as Christ also loved us and hath given Himself. So we know that there's sacrifice involved, isn't there, in love? If you go into a marriage thinking that that person is somehow there to serve you, to make your life easier, somehow to do what you want them to do, you're mistaken what love is. That's more narcissism than love. Love is sacrifice. You hear people say, well, marriage is 50-50. No, it never has been. You have to go into a marriage knowing that you are going to give your all, apart from what you give God, to that one. And that means doing things that you may not want to do. You may not want to do their laundry. You may not want to go pick them up when their car breaks down. You may not want to visit them in the hospital when they're sick. But that's what love does, isn't it? Right? I mean, that's what Corinthians tells us, right? It's all about sacrifice. It's all about giving. It's all about the betterment of the other person. He says, and walk in love as Christ. Christ is the example of how you and I are to walk in love, as Christ also has loved us and given Himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. In other words, we have relationship with the Father because of the love of Christ and His example of sacrificing Himself on the cross. All the beating and all the pulling of the beard and the crown of thorns and the whipping with the canine nine tails and the hanging on the cross and the stabbing in the side and being put in that airless tomb for 3 days and His resurrection from the grave. Oh, my friends, He is our example of how you and I are to love one another. Love often entails pain and a denial of self for the betterment of the other person. He says, and walk in love. This is our command. We are to follow Christ. That idea of following Christ in His footsteps. Now, as I speak in on this passage, it is February 2nd here in northern Ohio. We have about maybe 6 to 8 inches of snow outside, and it is bitter, bitter cold. But I'm thinking about that snow, and as a father goes out and makes his way to a car, his little 5-year-old or 10-year-old will often step in his father's steps, right, in the snow to get where the father is going. And in that kind of what is being said here, that as God, we are to imitate God and forgive. We are to love as Christ loves in His sacrifice. We are to follow, we are to step where they step, do as they do, right? And so he says, you and I are to do as Christ did, and as he has given himself for us, an offering, a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. Now, isn't that what Paul said in Romans chapter 12? Verses 1 and 2, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. He says the admonition there, as it says in verses 1 and 2 here, is that you and I are to sacrifice, to be living sacrifices, to be followers of God, to be followers of Christ, to do as Christ does, walk in his footsteps, and forgive and to love. Forgive and to love as they do for us. Wow, something to think about today. This is Pastor Marvin Osborn saying, God loves you, and I love you as well. And I'll talk to you soon.